Well, good afternoon, everyone. Today, jury selection began for the trial of disbarred attorney Alec Murdaugh in the 2021 murders of his wife Maggie and their youngest son Paul.
Murdaugh now facing 2 counts of murder. WIS's Nick Neville and Greg Adeline, they're in Walterboro, joining us live from Colleton County. Nick and Greg, walk us through exactly what happened today.
Well, good afternoon to you, Billie Jean and Dondi. Jury selection is underway here at the Colleton County Courthouse. That's a process that is expected to take several days. There were 900 jury summons that went out in this small county, and now today those jurors are coming up to the courthouse and they are being screened to see who can provide jury selection and who can provide at least some sort of unbiased and some sort of at least some opinions here that would at least make them impartial in this case. Now, of course, that is certainly a difficult challenge only because of certain factors in this case. It is very highly watched, and it is certainly a situation where there are a lot of eyes on this case. Joining me now, Nick Neville. And Nick, one of those is really the Murdaugh family name. Finding jurors that can be impartial, that don't have any real familiarity with the Murdaughs, is going to be challenging today.
Absolutely. And so we heard from Eric Bland, who's actually the attorney for Gloria Satterfield, the family of Gloria Satterfield. That's the the late Murdaugh housekeeper. And he was telling us that you're really going to be hard pressed to find anyone in this jury pool who has not heard the name Murdaugh or is not familiar with this case. But he's telling us that this is really going to be the grueling task for both the state and the defense here to find those folks, to find those individuals who can be impartial jurors, not people who, as Bland told us, are living under a rock. You don't want people who haven't necessarily heard of the case, but folks who are able to sort of put both of the arguments, think of both of the arguments and deliberate that way.
Yeah, one of the big factors in this case is it is highly watched. There has been just a ton of media coverage. In fact, we have media outlets from around the country, even around the world, that are here. Several crews that descended on this small town over the past several days. And of course, the coverage and the documentaries and all of the information that's come out about this case makes it a challenge to find these impartial jurors. We heard from Judge Clifton Newman, and it's important to note that there was no video necessarily in that courtroom this morning because, after all, they don't want any of the identities of the jurors to be disclosed in any way, shape, or form. But we did have an audio feed, and the judge laid out a question that's very revealing about this jury selection process. Take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated earlier, you've been summoned for jury duty in the case of the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And that was the opening line from the judge in that. But at one point he asked whether or not anyone had heard any information about the details of June the 7th, 2021, if they've seen any news reports, if they have any familiarity with this case. And at that point you could hear just a legion of jurors, a good number of them inside that courtroom, stand to their feet. Ultimately, whether or not that's disqualifying, we shall see over the next couple of days. But Nick, also we heard in the courtroom today a list of potential witnesses who may testify in this trial.
So among them is Alec Murdaugh's surviving son, Buster. We also heard that we could be hearing from attorney Eric Bland, who we spoke to today, of course. Also a number of officials with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, local sheriff's offices. So really, just as this trial continues to play out, of course, we're expecting jury selection to take at least the next several days, but there has been at least 3 weeks set aside for the trial. Could go longer than that.
Yeah, there are certain exceptions, too, for some of these jurors as to why they would not be able to serve, perhaps a medical issue or an issue with child care. But again, all of these issues are being sorted out in court in a hearing that has taken the majority of the day here in Colleton County as they weed through and sift through to find it'll be 12 jurors and 2 alternates who will ultimately decide the fate of Alec Murdaugh, the prominent Low Country attorney who is accused of double murder for an incident on June the 7th, 2021, just a short distance from here, about 20 miles down the road on the family's hunting property in Colleton County. That's the very latest for now, but we're going to send it back to you as we continue to cover the very latest in the Alec Murdaugh trial.
Nick and Greg, thank you for that report. We're going to hear more from our Nick and Greg Adeline that in Colleton County at 5. Of course, we'll keep you updated on air and online as this case develops.